In the previous video, I talked about which economic systems were the most compelling as starting points to fix the economy. The outcome from that comparison was that land value taxes and stablecoin adoption were the two most compelling ideas to start with. But there are other ways that we can consider when trying to fix the economy. In this video, I'm going to compare three different approaches. We could try to fix the economy through nation states, Web3 ecosystems, and community initiatives. Nation states are one of the most obvious starting points. We already have established countries across the world and governments that are able to adopt changes and policies that can help with fixing the economy. A government could introduce land value taxes, and it could also support the adoption of stablecoins and eventually demerge money by using something like money taxes. One reason it's compelling to start with nation states is the populations in these countries are already established and they already are operating their own economic systems. Even small changes to these systems can be very meaningful for improving the economy. If you make changes using a nation state government, then this is going to be one of the most desirable ways to fix the economy. This should lead to gradual progression and improvements over time. The problem with focusing on nation state governments is they can be slow and difficult to change. You might end up spending a lot of time advocating for better economic solutions and still not get enough support or adoption. It could be quite challenging to fix the economy through slow moving governments, but the positive impact is enormous if you are able to adopt solutions that can fix the economy in this way. Now let's consider Web3 ecosystems. The great thing about Web3 ecosystems is they are global by default. Anyone in the world can use them. So if there's enough people online that benefit from a certain application or service, then a Web3 solution could be adopted at scale. These new and emerging ecosystems are giving us more tools and options for how we can structure society and participate in the digital economy. A huge amount of innovations and progress will come from this new technology. But the problem with this technology and its adoption is how sticky and entrenched the existing systems are. Everyone is still using fiat money, and centralized services like YouTube, Instagram, Amazon, Facebook, or Google. It's difficult to migrate from these centralized solutions towards new decentralized alternatives. Fiat money is legal tender within the existing nation states, so people have to accept this form of money as a medium of exchange, and they use it to pay for taxes. Digital services at this stage are generally very polished products. They work pretty damn well, and many of them have network effects, which means they become more valuable the more that people use them. This makes it really hard for new networks to compete with the well-established networks. Inflationary fiat money is currently one of the most damaging systems in our existing economy. So we really want to replace this as soon as possible. Stablecoins are a great starting point for bringing fiat money on chain. The adoption of Web3 through stablecoins is a really compelling starting point to drive more innovation in wallets, financial protocols, and other applications and services. However, this does bring us back to nation states. You're going to need regulations to enable the adoption of stablecoins. Otherwise, there will be a lot of hesitation from existing businesses to embrace the adoption of this technology due to regulation uncertainty. So, stablecoin adoption either requires nation state governments to support its adoption, or alternatively, new forms of money are adopted due to the failure of fiat money and the potential collapse of those systems. Economic collapse is obviously extremely undesirable. It can easily lead to more suffering, chaos, and in some cases, even death. So, waiting for the collapse of these systems is not really a great strategy. Global adoption of Web3 applications and services could also happen, and that might happen if one compelling use case is able to achieve global adoption, which in turn could help to ignite further investment and adoption of other use cases. But considering how many centralized services already exist and how well they already function, it's hard to place any strong confidence on the idea that this is the most effective way to achieve global adoption of Web3 technology. Stablecoins still seem to be the most compelling approach to start with, but this likely requires the involvement, support, and approval from nation state governments. The final approach that could help with fixing the economy is through community initiatives. A group of people could come together and make their own local community. These communities could adopt a variety of new economic ideas. The great thing with a community initiative approach is that you can adopt things really quickly and experiment with lots of different ideas to find out what works. The rate of innovation and experimentation should be quite high, and this could mean adopting all of the different economic ideas that we've already discussed before. Land value taxes, deflationary demerged money, temporary shares of ownership, and completely new governance systems. You could do all of this in a local community. One of the challenges with this type of approach is how it intersects with existing nation state governments. When you're within a nation state, you can't suddenly say, I'm not participating in this economy anymore. I'm not going to pay any taxes. I'm just going to do my own thing with this group of people over here. Realistically, you need some form of approval of this initiative as an experiment. Some countries already somewhat enable this through things like economic zones, where the community within that zone have influence to create their own economic policies and regulations with some degree of flexibility and autonomy. Another problem with community initiatives is the scale of these experiments. A small community of 100 or even 1,000 people is a tiny experiment in comparison with nation-state populations. A land value tax should still have some positive outcome for even a local community, but it will take time to provide evidence of the impact it generates. This seems like a fairly slow approach to try and convince others to adopt land value taxes. Money is also a problem. Adopting new systems of money at such a small scale doesn't sound massively compelling, especially if these communities still need to regularly interact with the external and already established economy that uses a different form of money. A community initiative could definitely be valuable in providing more evidence of the success from adopting new economic approaches. However, the scale of these experiments is pretty important. The smaller the community, the less compelling it becomes that it will be highly effective for igniting significant change across the world. And even if it can ignite change eventually, it looks unlikely that it would be happening anytime soon. The other approaches seem more compelling as the faster approaches for achieving global adoption of better economic systems. Considering all of these three approaches, fixing the economy through nation states is still the most compelling starting point. Nation state governments can help with the adoption of solutions like land value taxes and stablecoins. This should help with creating an environment that is ready for more adoption of Web3 solutions, which can then translate into further innovations and adoption of better economic systems. But what if nation states are too slow? The second best approach is likely Web3 ecosystems, and the reason for that is due to the speed of implementation, experimentation, and potential adoption. The rate of development and potential progress is very high if these Web3 solutions can be increasingly adopted. Web3 solutions also create more of a safety net in case a nation state actually collapses. If that happens, those populations could adopt Web3 solutions and alternative systems of money more rapidly. So it could be the case that the collapse of a nation state ends up being the fastest path to economic recovery, as they might suddenly adopt better Web3 solutions. And then any success from that adoption could then spread to other countries more quickly. The ongoing development and refinement of Web3 solutions is a really good thing, just in case an economic collapse does actually happen. For community initiatives, there's no harm in experimenting with lots of ideas across smaller communities which may be spread out across different locations across the globe. These initiatives might even be the only way to experiment with some ideas that are just not as popular in larger populations. I imagine that we would all prefer to avoid an economic collapse. That outcome shouldn't be necessary for us to finally adopt better economic solutions. All of these approaches for fixing the economy could be effective and successful. But for now, I think trying to fix the nation-state governments is likely the best path to fix the economy, assuming that you really want to avoid economic collapse. And this primary focus on fixing nation-state economies can still be happening whilst a number of other people are advancing Web3 capabilities and solutions or experimenting with different economic ideas within community initiatives. That's it for now. I'll see you in the next one.